She was to many a nobody. The people inside of Germany during the 1930s and 1940s had no idea who Eva Braun was. She remains one of the most enigmatic figures of the Second World War, and she was Adolf Hitler's girlfriend. At the end of the conflict, she became Mrs. Hitler for less than 40 hours, and she had spent most of her life inside of the shadows. She was a woman not fit for government office, and Eva loved a party and being a young lady too much, and she did not want to seek power and influence politically. She was happy being the secret girlfriend of the dictator, who benefited greatly from the evil regime he imposed upon millions of people. But she remained loyal to Hitler until the end. Even when Berlin and the final flames of the Third Reich were erupting, she decided to remain inside of the German capital and die by her own hand. But what is not as well known is that the days after her death, the Soviets claimed that they discovered the remains of Eva Braun, and these were then packed away inside of a coffin and were buried in a grave for 25 years after the war. Today we investigate this, and to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Eva Anna Paula Braun was born in Munich in 1912 into a middle-class Catholic family. She met Adolf Hitler in 1929 when she was just 17, working as an assistant and model for Hitler's photographer Heinrich Hoffmann. By then, Hitler was already a rising political figure. Their relationship was unconventional. Hitler kept Eva hidden from public view, presenting himself as a solitary leader, married only to Germany, and despite this, Eva remained loyal to him for over 15 years. She lived a life of relative comfort at Hitler's residences in Munich, and later at the Berghof in the Bavarian Alps, though she often complained of loneliness. She was not part of the Nazi political elite, nor did she wield real power, but she became part of Hitler's inner circle. When the Third Reich crumbled in 1945, she chose to follow him into death rather than flee. And by early 1945, Germany was collapsing on all fronts. Soviet forces were closing in on Berlin from the east, whilst the Allies advanced from the west. Hitler retreated into the Führer bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery in Berlin in January of 1945, where he would remain until his death. Eva Braun joined him there on April 15, 1945, even though she had the opportunity to escape to safety in Bavaria. Her presence in the bunker was a powerful statement of loyalty. Life inside the bunker was grim. Reports describe a tense atmosphere filled with constant bombardment, dwindling food supplies, and the certainty that defeat was inevitable. Hitler himself was in poor health, shaking uncontrollably, visibly aged, and prone to violent rages. Yet Eva remained cheerful, trying to lighten the mood by playing music or talking about trivial things, even as the walls of the Reich began to collapse around them. On April 29, 1945, with Soviet troops just streets away, Eva Braun and Adolf Hitler were married in a brief civil ceremony inside the bunker. Witnesses included Josef Goebbels and Martin Bormann. For Eva, it was the culmination of a relationship in which she had long sought recognition. After years of being hidden, she finally became Adolf Hitler's wife, though only for a single day. After the ceremony, a modest celebration was held with champagne and cake. Hitler dictated his political and personal testaments, blaming the Jews for the war and naming Adolf Karl Donzis as his successor. To those in the bunker, it was clear that the end was imminent. On April 30th, 1945, Hitler and Eva prepared to end their lives. Accounts from witnesses such as Hitler's valet, Heinz Ling, and his secretary, Traudl Jung, provided insights into the final moments. Eva Braun was reportedly calm and composed, even smiling. Unlike Magda Goebbels, who agonized over the fate of her children, Eva made no attempt to persuade Hitler to escape or surrender. She seemed content with her decision, telling others she would never live without him. And at around 3:30 in the afternoon, Hitler and Eva withdrew to Hitler's private study. Hitler carried a pistol, while Eva carried a small vial of cyanide. Those waiting outside heard nothing, but when the door was opened shortly afterwards, the two were found dead. Eva Braun had taken cyanide. She lay on the sofa beside Hitler, her face reportedly serene. Hitler had shot himself in the right temple with his pistol, though some witnesses claimed he also bit down on a cyanide capsule. The couple's death marked the symbolic end of the Nazi regime. Hitler had left instructions that his body should not be captured and displayed by the enemy, as had happened to Mussolini's corpse days earlier in Milan. Following his orders, Hitler's aides carried the bodies of him and Eva Braun upstairs from the bunker into the Chancellery garden. They were wrapped in blankets, doused in petrol and set on fire. The cremation was hurried and incomplete due to constant shelling and a lack of sufficient fuel. Soviet troops would later find the remains, though badly charred, and recover fragments of bones and teeth for forensic identification. Eva's body and corpse was burnt alongside Hitler's in the garden of the Reich Chancellery, just outside of the bunker where she had died. It was doused in a significant amount of fuel and petrol, and was then ignited. It took some time to set fire to the remains, but when they were burnt for a number of hours, more fuel was added on. Days later, the Soviets claimed they had found the bodies and charred remains of Eva and Hitler inside of a bomb crater. By the 11th of May 1945, 2 of Hitler's dentists had identified her teeth and remains, including a dental bridge that was belonging to Eva. However, one dentist claimed that she was never fitted with this, leading to the conclusion there was a significant amount of doubt that the remains found were not of Eva Braun. The corpse discovered of a woman had also allegedly died from injuries sustained in an explosion, which further added suspicion to their story. Anyway, in the aftermath of this, the Soviets placed the remains of the woman believed to be Eva inside of a coffin, and they then had these taken to the lab for an autopsy. After this, the remains were then buried under a Secret Service facility in the city of Magdeburg, and they were left there for 25 years. But in 1970, with the facility due to be handed back to the Germans, the Soviets exhumed the remains of Eva Braun and then cremated them once and for all and scattered the ashes. This was the final end for the remain of the wife of Adolf Hitler. Eva Braun's death has been interpreted in many ways. Some view her as a tragic figure, a young woman who devoted her life to a man who never fully acknowledged her. She had wealth and privilege, but little influence, living always in Hitler's shadow. Her final acts of loyalty, dying with him, was, in this interpretation, the ultimate proof of her devotion, however misguided. Others argue that she was complicit, even if indirectly, in Hitler's crimes. Whilst she did not participate in politics or military decisions, she enjoyed the benefits of the Nazi regime and chose to stay with Hitler despite knowing the destruction he was causing. Her death, then, was not just an act of love, but also a refusal to face the consequences of the regime's collapse. The death of Eva Braun on April 30th, 1945, in the Berlin bunker is a story of loyalty, tragedy and complicity. She had opportunities to escape, to live on after the war, but she chose instead to tie her fate to Adolf Hitler, and in doing so, she became not only his final companion, but also a symbol of the collapse of the Nazi regime. Her serene acceptance of death contrasts with the chaos and destruction outside the bunker's wall, yet ultimately her death alongside Hitler remains less a romantic gesture than a tragic reflection of a life devoted to a man and a cause that brought devastation to Europe. Eva Braun's end was both personal and political, a private act of devotion and a public symbol of the end of the Nazi Germany. She entered history not through her own achievements, but through her choice of loyalty, and in her death she became forever linked to one of the darkest figures of the 20th century. Thank you for watching, and to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. And once again, thank you so much for watching.